Hello, and welcome to the Maine Coastal Islands National Wildlife Refuge Art Gallery, 9 Water Street, Rockland, Maine. And welcome in particular to the virtual tour of our winter show running from December through March 2022. The theme of this show is a request to 11 local artists in the mid-coast province of Maine, from Brunswick to Rockport, to offer their perspectives on the unique attributes of our landscape and our seascapes here, with particular emphasis on what it's like to be here in the winter, some of the critters, some of the habitats, land and seascapes. And with that, we'll take a short walk through, and while there's no substitution for your coming here in person to see this show, this will give you a chance to understand the excellence of some of these artists that we have on display. And the first piece by Cheryl Young of Bath, beautiful piece in pastels, and hauntingly titled Night King. Of course, it's a great horned owl. We have a number of different media in the show, from pastel on board, oil on canvas, photography, digital photography on metal, and gallery-wrapped canvases, Chinese inks, and acrylic. A little bit of everything from our 11 artists. The first piece by Sherry Deck of Waldoboro, oil on canvas, is her ferocious winter surf. The title is Daybreak, oil on canvas, 24 by 36 inches. The next piece by Sandi Crabtree, whose palette I enjoy quite a bit. Beautiful rendering, she calls it Winter Surf. If memory serves, she mentioned that she was thinking a little bit about Winslow Homer and his compositions when she did that. This nice, pretty little misty piece by Pat Ryan of Cushing, Maine, captures an early winter foggy morning, and the Sisters is how she has titled this oil on canvas of pine trees. The next one is a unique composition by Craig P Stapp. Craig is a resident of Brunswick, a seasonal resident in the Steuben area, quite near the Petit Manan unit of the Wildlife Refuge, a neighbor and supporter. And this is evocatively titled Rising Seas and Eroding Shores. Next is another oil on canvas by Sherry Deck, her Winter Sea. The next piece by Dwayne Lowe, framed digital photograph. His photography represents, in some cases, many, many hundreds of images and scores of hours waiting for the right moment and capturing it only just ever so barely. An instant of a second earlier or later, and some of that plasma-like explosion of water wouldn't be quite right. Part of the beautiful osprey wouldn't be in focus. He labors at this to great length along the Damariscotta area and the Damariscotta Mills area. Dwayne Lowe. The title is Catch. Sharon Markey is from Bristol, and this work is attempting to capture the gin-clear waters of winter with all the life that lay waiting for the spring. Bivalves, shellfish, plant life. And it's called Seaweed, Winter Clear Waters. Oil on canvas by Sharon Markey. This beautiful little pastel by Cheryl Young of the North American river otters. Very handsome portrayal. Her colored pencil and pastel work is just about as good as it can get. Really pretty. I love the title of this. It's Greed, a framed photograph by Dwayne Lowe. Another one of those instantaneous moments that would be lost an instant before or later. The watercolors and Chinese ink work of John Lowe is really expert. I find it very, very appealing. I think he told me that that was a willet that he had captured in an early winter flight departing the area. Another photograph by Dwayne Lowe. Dinner at 8. The next is Merry Solstice Tree, a manipulated digital image on metal by P Stapp. And I guess I don't want to disclose how he manipulated this because there's an actual natural resource hiding in that image that's been duplicated and modified. Another one of his very attentive studies along the coast near the Petit Manan unit of the wildlife refuge. You'll have to come and see it yourself. A yearling yellow-crowned night heron, photographed by Carla Skinder. An instant just before the green crab meets its maker. And the next one, Sentinel number 1, you'll see Sentinel number 2 shortly. It's an oil on canvas by Paula Spector. Paula has this nice, moody, soft technique with her oil on canvas. Ramona Hanley Warren. It's a wonderful technique. This is acrylic. Some of her work is very detailed and very close, but she likes the geometries of the composition. I enjoy looking at that one a lot. The next one gets to look back at you. It's the same yearling yellow-crowned night heron previously seen, but this time words fail me. And P Stapp captured this extraordinary sunset at the Petit Manan unit of the National Wildlife Refuge. That is his boat in the foreground, a beautiful sunset over a foggy cove. That's a panoramic piece, 3 feet by 12 inches. Sandi Crabtree, you will soon see, has a beautiful sense of the largeness of a thing. It's a wonderful portrait. Floating on a calm sea. Sandi Crabtree. And here's another one of Ramona Hanley Warren's pieces, and there's that sensibility she has about geometry and shape in compositions. Ice out, acrylic on board. This is the second piece by Paula Spector, Sentinel 2. The conversation between these 4 crows is going on into another phase. She has a series of these crow in misty winter branches. And Sharon Markey, at the very tail end of spring, I had intended this to be the last photograph to encourage people to think that spring will eventually get here. The spring launch, late winter, the first boats are out, the trees are still bare. And that's an oil on canvas. And our actual last piece by John Lowe, another one of those very carefully rendered watercolors with Chinese inks. It's the Bass Falls area of the Sheepscot River at high tide. So I hope you had an opportunity sufficient for the purpose of whetting your appetite to come to the gallery and see these in person. The show runs through the end of March 2022. The gallery is open Monday through Friday. And for more information, you can contact us on the web and look at the other programs that go on through the year here at the Visitor Center. Thanks for joining us.
Hi, my name is Brandon Simpson. I'm a local photographer here in Midcoast of Maine. And I primarily work with instant film photography with vintage cameras and using Polaroid film. So a lot of my work has been with just using the actual original film and framing that. And I pick spots that are coastal mostly. Like here's a coastal shot that I did in the South Thomaston area, which I really enjoy shooting around there. So yeah, I guess continue walking around. So with Polaroid film, it's instant, so there's no like developing or chemicals that you have to work with. It's all in with the film, and so with, I wish I had a camera with me. With instant film, the chemical reaction happens within the film when light hits the film inside the cartridge. So it's a lot of just point and click, but you kind of have to adjust for what you know is going to be shot. So just kind of getting an idea of what can be within this square. So I guess mostly I've been shooting in black and white, but there is a color and other various monochromatic or a duochrome film, which has various colors that it uses, like yellow, blue, I think red too, and then there's regular color and certain types of frames that the film's in. Most of them are in this square-like frame, but some of them do have circular frames. So yeah, most of these are all just coastal shots that I find myself in and around the area. Mostly are in the wintertime or off-season fall. I just find that as a more comforting time to shoot. So this is really cool. This is a winter shot in Owl's Head that I did in a snowstorm. And I actually was able to capture the snowflakes, and I can kind of see the actual structure that the snowflake is in its, if you can see that, hexagonal shapes. So I thought that was a really cool effect to grab. Any effect that you can get is really interesting with the Polaroid, especially working with vintage cameras, from the 70s and 80s. And it's all just kind of old plastic, and having it actually work is pretty fantastic. Most of my camera collecting has been from like thrift shops. I'll get like a $6 camera and hope for the best that it comes out. So when it does, it's pretty exciting. And then here's some of a round frame series. I kind of felt this all went together all again around Maine, but kind of employing color, which I don't know if I'm fully comfortable with yet. I'm mostly doing black and white, but I thought these were really cool beach scenes where I really enjoy the tree lines mixed with the water. And then I have done some prints. These are both on acrylic. So I take my Polaroid original film and basically take a digital image and then use some sort of online business. I found one which I enjoy, and it's pretty straightforward. And then basically they printed out on whatever. I chose acrylic, and you can just use whatever size you want. These are both 12 by 12, but this is mostly what I'm headed in my future work. I still want to do those framed originals, but then also kind of blow them up and take these normally 3 by 3 inch images and just expand them and get like a really immersive kind of effect, like in this backyard tree image, that you just kind of get that eerie, charcoal, immersive, wintry vibe that I really enjoy, and it's in some of my other work. This one I particularly liked. It was just in a place I was staying in Rockland last winter, and I just really enjoyed the trees in the backyard. So I just kept taking pictures of these, and this was actually a double exposure, which is either can happen as an accident or you can intentionally do it. It kind of depends on the camera, where you take a picture and stop the roll from taking out the film. And so with that one, you kind of open up the cartridge quickly as you're shooting the picture, stuff the film back in and reshoot the same film. Other cameras, it's a bit easy. You kind of have to do your own little rigging and research on whatever camera you have. But this was a double exposure. You can kind of see the film roll here as it got stuck. And when I'm reprinting the image, I want all the little nuances, like this little sunburst here, or like the roll of film, just to kind of come out to really kind of express the Polaroid image. So, just some more coastal shots. Another with the snow. This I'm going to try to do more of this winter. This was from last winter here in Rockland, but more of that hexagonal shapes that come out with the snowflakes. And actually, it's kind of cool. The Polaroid camera does these little corner exposure things that actually look like the snowflakes itself, so I thought that was kind of interesting too. So in here, this is some duochrome yellow filtered film, which is really fun to use. I enjoy going to various lighthouses around the coast, so I get a lot of those. This was just one of the examples of many lighthouses, but it's always iconic, I guess, when you're a photographer and to shoot lighthouses. So I felt that was important to have here. And this is again another one of the prints, the same style, except with the using the yellow film and printing it out. This is original Polaroid film, and the one that I took the print of in the main room. So I was kind of thought this was neat to put it here in the beginning of the show, so kind of give it a quick glimpse for the viewer, and then they can come in and be like, oh man, I saw that somewhere, just to kind of give an idea of what the original looks like, and then seeing the blown up print. All in all, with Polaroid images, it's really great to have that instant film gratification where you're not in the dark room, or you're waiting for your exposures to come out with lengthy time and all that. So just sort of the instant gratification you get with Polaroid films really adhered to when I first started, and as being a new up and coming, I guess, photographer, it's a cool medium to get into, especially it's so analog in this digital age, and just to kind of dial it back and simplify things, and this like point and click old vintage style. So it's really neat for me to enjoy this and the simplicity and the instant gratification that you get with Polaroid film. So, yeah.
Hi, I'm Sandi Cirillo, and I'm here at the Maine Coastal Islands National Wildlife Refuge in Rockland, Maine. And I've got an exhibit of solar plate etchings that I would like to show you. So please come along with me. Now you might be wondering right off the bat, what is a solar plate etching? A solar plate etching is a printmaking process. And it's not too widely known throughout the country, especially here in Maine too, actually. And I learned this process about 7 or 8 years ago from a gentleman who teaches it in the Northeast, and I took one of his classes and I was hooked. And my display here is all about the pictures that I've taken and made into solar plate etchings. Now the process for an etching to make a solar plate etching is that you start out with a picture, just a picture that you would take with a regular camera, a digital camera, and then you make a copy of that picture with a copier, and now you've got a black and white copy of that picture. You've taken out all the color. So now you look at that picture and that black and white picture and say, well, gee, should I add some more contrast to it, a little more, maybe a little charcoal pencil here and there, and add some more contrast to the whole piece before you start to go through the printing process. Then you make another copy on a copier, and you slide in a transparency, which is a really thin piece of transparent film. So that copy gets transferred onto the film itself. So now you've got this transparency with your picture on it. So now you take your picture, your transparency, with the picture on it, place it on top of a copper plate. And then you take the two of those, put them in a light box, which emits ultraviolet light for about 1 minute, 45 seconds, generally. Then, once that's done, you take the transparency and the copper plate out of the light box. And you don't need the transparency anymore, but now you've got this etching that is on the copper plate. But the copper plate is still soft. You have to be very careful when you're touching the copper plate because you could get fingerprints all over it. So here's where the solar part comes in. We take the copper plate, put it out in the sun, let it sit there for about 20 minutes so the sun hardens the copper plate. Now you take the copper plate back inside and you're ready to get a brayer and run some printing ink over that copper plate and run the copper plate through an etching press and make as many prints as you want to make. All the pictures in the gallery that you see here are pictures that are local pictures that I've taken. I've lived here in Maine almost 10 years now. And I think with the exception of this one, which is called Tree and Fog, this was taken in North Carolina. I was teaching a class down there, and there was this beautiful tree and it was early morning, and it was just this beautiful tree and fog. I had to take a picture of it. But the rest of these pieces that you see here on the walls are all pictures taken here in Maine. This one over here I wanted to kind of highlight because it's kind of an unusual picture to begin with. This was taken up at Scudic Point, and if you've never been there, it's in Winter Harbor. It's a fabulous place to go. And I had parked my car, and this bird decided to just land on the front of my car. And so I went off to see Scooting Point and was climbing all over the rocks. I came back and the bird was still there, perched on one foot on the front of my car. And I thought, and I could see the image in the front, the hood of the car, his image. And I thought, it's mirror image, you know? So I took a picture of the bird, and he didn't move. I was really surprised, and that's where this image came from. But this was taken at Scooting Point up in Winter Harbor. Let's see. Over here, I happen to enjoy looking at lighthouses and seeing where they are, and I've seen quite a few since I've lived up here in Maine. And here's just a few. This is West Quoddy Light, which is up in Lubec, Maine. And fabulous lighthouse with red and white stripes. And this is the Portland Headlight, which is in Cape Elizabeth. Over here, this is a harbor scene. Then I took a picture of a harbor in Belfast, Maine, which is a beautiful little city right on the coast. And this piece up here is called Maine. I titled it Maine Woods, and I was driving along Route 1 South, just south of Northport, Maine, and it was the day after a big snowstorm, a big heavy wet snow that coated all these beautiful evergreens, and I just pulled my car over and got out and took pictures of the way the snow had draped itself on these beautiful old evergreens. And so that's where that picture came from. This one over here, this actually is an old truck that is located in Liberty, Maine. And I happened to visit Liberty, Maine, and I had my camera with me and found this truck that was kind of hidden amongst all the trees and the shrubs. It probably had been there for years and years and years. It was kind of all rusted out. And I thought, what a beautiful picture that would make, what a beautiful etching it would make. And so I'm really pleased to have been able to take that picture. And probably that truck is probably, I'm guessing, is probably still there actually. But if you ever get to Liberty, Maine, look for this truck. Oh, and by the way, besides working and creating solar plate etchings, I also am a fiber artist. And mainly I work with wool. I've been doing that for over 30 years now. I teach classes. I teach classes here and, you know, different places around the state of Maine. And this piece I decided to put in to this show. It's a piece that I call, it's a sea anemone. And years ago, I had done a group of these in wool. This is all made out of, well, most of it is made out of wool. And I had been studying the fact that there are sea anemones which are in the Gulf of Maine. And there are sea anemones all over the world in mostly tropical places where they are brightly colored like this. Well, they're not really brightly colored like this in Maine, but I wanted to just point out that we do have sea anemones here in the Gulf of Maine, and I kind of wanted to pay homage to them and just to make people aware. So I had done a series. This is one, and I think I did about 10 or 11 of them, and they've been on display in different areas. And I just decided to put that into this exhibit also because it really deals with this area. It deals with Maine. It deals with the Gulf of Maine specifically, and it's just another way to showcase some of the work that I've done